Imagine you've just won the biggest war of your generation, not with brute strength, but with a clever, almost devious, spark of genius. In the smoldering ruins of Troy, you, Odysseus, the resourceful king of Ith, are finally ready to go home after 10 long years of fighting. But your brilliant idea, the one that ended it, or that magnificent hollow Trojan horse, has managed to seriously tick off some very powerful gods who aren't fans of trickery. Will this be a simple victory lap across the sea, or the start of an even longer, more agonizing ordeal? Hit like if you're ready for an epic journey, and comment with the cleverest trick you've ever pulled off. The air still hangs thick with the ghosts of battle. You can taste the ash on your tongue, a gritty reminder of a decade stolen from your life. 10 years, an entire lifetime for some. You look around at the faces of your men, the Ithacans who survived. They're weary, their eyes hollowed out by the horrors of the Trojan War. But there's a flicker of something new in them. Home. The word itself is a prayer, a mantra whispered on the decks of your 12 black ships as they reloaded with the spoils of a conquered city. You feel a pull in your chest, a longing for your island, for your wife, Penelope, and for your son Telemachus, who was just an infant when you left. Your big idea, the Trojan horse, is now the stuff of legend. A mainstream fact, everyone knows. The Achaeans pretended to sail away, leaving behind a giant wooden horse, as a supposed offering to the gods. The Trojans, bless their gullible hearts, dragged it inside their impenetrable walls, and, well, you know the rest. But here, as a little-known detail, while you and your best soldiers were crammed inside that stuffy wooden belly, Helen of Troy, the face that launched all this mess, supposedly walked around the horse imitating the voices of your wives. She was trying to trick you into calling out and revealing your position. It was a moment of pure, psychological warfare, and you had to physically clamp your hand over one of your men's mouths to keep him from falling for it. Talk about a close call. It was a high-risk, high-reward gambit, and it paid off beautifully. For now, as your fleet finally pushes off from the Trojan shore, the mood is electric. The war is over. The commute home shouldn't be too bad. A few weeks at sea, maybe. You're the hero of the hour, the man with the plan. What could possibly go wrong? You stand at the prow of your ship, the salty spray a welcome baptism, washing away the grime of Troy. You feel invincible. This is the tragic flaw of so many heroes, a moment of hubris, right before the universe decides to teach them a lesson in humility, and your lesson is scheduled to last for another 10 years. Scholars still argue whether the Trojan War was a historical event or pure myth. But the journey you're about to embark on feels terrifyingly real, a deep dive into a world where gods hold grudges longer than anyone you know. Your war may be over, but your real battle, the one against fate, monsters, and the sea itself, is just beginning. So, you've set sail from Troy, feeling like 1,000,000 drachmas. The first leg of your journey is actually pretty smooth. The wind is at your back, the sea is calm, and your ship's cut cleanly through the blue Aegean water. Your first port of call is the land of the Chacones. Now, in the modern world, we'd call what you do next a brutal pirate raid. But in your time, it's just standard post-war procedure. You and your men storm the city, sack it completely, and divide up the loot and the women. It's a messy, violent business, but it's the way of the world. After the fighting is done, you gather your crew on the beach. You're a smart commander, and your gut is telling you to get out of there. You say, "All right, lads, we've got the goods. Let's load up and leave before the locals can text their friends for backup." But your crew, fresh from a decade of war and discipline, are ready to party. They look at the captured wine, the livestock, and the beautiful beach, and they basically decide it's time for an impromptu barbecue. They slaughter the sheep, uncork the wine, and start celebrating. You're arguing with them, trying to instill some sense of urgency, but it's no use. They are deep in their cups and deaf to your warnings. This is where you get a crucial item for later. A special, incredibly potent wine, a gift from a priest of Apollo named whose family you spared during the raid. A little fact most people don't know. This wine was so strong, it was meant to be diluted with 20 parts water. 1 cup of this stuff, straight, could knock a man out cold. Keep that in your back pocket, it'll come in handy. Predictably, your crew's beach party gives the Chacones exactly the time they needed. Survivors from the city run inland and fetch reinforcements, an army of skilled fighters who arrive at dawn. Your hungover, sleep-deprived men are caught completely by surprise. A fierce battle breaks out on the sand, and this time, you're on the losing end. You're forced into a desperate retreat, fighting your way back to the ships, leaving behind 6 men from each of your 12 vessels. 72 men lost, all because of greed and a refusal to listen. It's your first major failure as a commander on this journey home, a grim sign of the trouble to come. Scholars still argue whether these post-war raids were considered heroic acts of warrior princes or simply the brutal realities of a world without international law. For you, right now, it just feels like a tragic, pointless waste. Heartbroken and humbled, you set sail once more, but the gods are clearly not done with you. A furious storm, sent by a displeased Zeus, descends upon your fleet, shredding your sails and scattering your ships. For 9 terrifying days, you are driven blindly across the sea, completely lost. On the 10th day, you drift to the shores of a new land, the land of the Lotus. The place seems unnervingly peaceful. The locals are gentle, welcoming, and they offer your weary scouts their favorite food, the lotus flower. This isn't a poison, it's something far more insidious. It's the ultimate chill pill. Anyone who eats it is overcome with a blissful apathy, completely forgetting their home, their family, and their mission. They just want to stay on that island forever, munching on flowers. When your scouts don't come back, you go looking for them yourself, only to find them in a state of spaced-out bliss, with no intention of leaving. You have to physically drag them back to the ship, weeping and begging to be left behind, and then tie them to the rowing benches. You're essentially the designated driver for your own crew, trying to get everyone home while they're lost in a psychedelic haze. It's a strange, quiet kind of horror, the temptation to simply give up and forget. You manage to get your lotus-dazed crew away from that strange, hazy island, and you sail on, your heart a little heavier, your sense of direction completely gone. Soon you come to a new land. One island is lush and deserted, teeming with wild goats, a perfect place to rest and regroup. Inside, there are giant racks of cheese, buckets of milk, and pens full of lambs and kids, all separated by age. It's a niche operation, a Cyclops-run dairy farm. Your men urge you to grab some cheese and run for it. You can't kill him in his sleep, or you'll be trapped forever. You need him alive, but helpless. When Polyphemus returns and eats 2 more of your men for dinner, you put your plan into motion. You approach him, offering him your super-strong wine. He's never tasted anything like it. He gulps it down greedily and asks for more. Drunk and happy, he asks your name, promising you a gift in return. You look him right in his single, bloodshot eye and say, "My name is Nobody." He laughs and says his gift to you will be to eat you last. Then he passes out flat on the cave floor. Just a quick smash and grab and be on your way. But your pride, and a misplaced faith in the sacred rule of hospitality, makes you refuse. You and your remaining men take the huge olive wood club he uses as a staff, sharpen the end, and heat it in the fire until it's glowing red. With a coordinated heave, you drive the burning stake deep into his eye. The eyeball hisses, sizzles, and pops. His roar of agony is deafening. Other Cyclopes from nearby caves hear his screams and call out, "What's wrong, Polyphemus? Who is hurting you?" And through his pain, he bellows the answer you gave him. "Nobody is hurting me. Nobody is tricking me." His friends, figuring he's just got a divinely sent migraine, tell him to pray to his dad and go back to bed. It's the oldest who's on first, tune in history, and it works perfectly. Blind and furious, he can't find you. The next morning, as he lets his sheep out, you escape by clinging to their woolly undersides. But as you sail away, your hubris gets the last word. You can't resist shouting back, taunting him, revealing your true name. If anyone asks who blinded you, tell them it was Odysseus, king of Ith. In that single, arrogant moment, you give him exactly what he needs. Polyphemus, son of the sea god Poseidon, prays to his father for vengeance, laying out a precise curse that will define the next decade of your life. Scholars still debate whether the myth of the Cyclops was inspired by early discoveries of prehistoric dwarf elephant skulls, whose large central nasal cavity could easily be mistaken for a single giant eye socket. For you, the truth is much simpler. You just made an enemy of the sea itself. You want to meet the owner. You want to see what gift he might offer a weary. This decision will haunt you for the rest of your life. But across a narrow channel, you see another island. He herds his flock into the cave and then rolls a stone over the entrance that 20 wagons could unmove. You're trapped. He spots you and your men cowering in the shadows. He doesn't offer you a drink or a seat by the fire. He just asks who you are, a massive breach of etiquette. And then, without warning, he grabs 2 of your men, smashes their heads against the rock, and eats them, bones and all. The sound is sickening. Your world collapses. The next morning, he eats 2 more for breakfast before leaving for the day, sealing you in the dark with your terror and grief. It's mountainous, shrouded in mist, and you can see smoke rising from what look like scattered caves. This is the land of the Cyclopes, a race of brutish, one-eyed giants, and your fatal curiosity, the part of you that just has to know what's over the next hill, kicks into high gear. Your men, remembering the Chikunis, are practically begging you, "Hey boss, this deserted island has plenty of goat meat and fresh water, let's just stay here." But no. You decide to take 1 ship and a dozen of your best men to go and see what kind of neighbors you've got. You do have the foresight, however, to bring along that incredibly potent, undiluted wine given to you by Meron the priest. A little something for a housewarming gift, perhaps. You find a massive cave, clearly the home of someone large. Suddenly, the ground shakes. The owner is home. It's Polyphemus, a giant of a creature with a single, glaring eye in the middle of his forehead. That night, your mind, the same mind that devised the Trojan horse, spins a desperate plan. Now is your chance. So, you've escaped the Cyclops, but not before screaming your home address to the son of the sea god. It's a classic move, really. Keeping it in the family, even for gods welcome you and your surviving crew. You stay with them for a whole month, feasting and telling your incredible story of the Trojan War and your disastrous attempts to get home. Your crew, who have been watching you guard this mysterious bag for days, have let their jealousy and suspicion fester. They start whispering amongst themselves. What's in the bag? Aeolus must have given him a fortune in gold and silver, and he's keeping it all for himself. They see you asleep, see their chance. Convinced they're about to get their share of some hidden treasure, they untie the silver cord. Aeolus is captivated by your tales of heroism and suffering. He feels for you. A hurricane of divine power erupts, spinning your ships around and rocketing you backward, away from Ithaca, back across the sea in a chaotic, helpless tumble. You wake up to the screaming of your men and the howling of the gale, just in time to see the shores of your home vanish back over the horizon. The despair is absolute. An obscure detail from some tellings of the myth is that you actually considered just throwing yourself overboard right then and there, ending it all. But you pull yourself back from the brink, covering your head with your cloak, and just enduring. When it's time to leave, he decides to give you a truly spectacular farewell gift, a parting favor of incredible value. You stumble ashore, a broken man, and go back to Aeolus to beg for his help again. But his face is grim. He looks at you not with pity, but with horror. He sees you now as a man cursed, a man so hated by the gods that any help given to you is an affront to them. He casts you out, shouting, "Get off my island." I can't help a man the immortals despise. There's no scholarly debate here. You messed up, or rather, your crew did. You're kicked out of paradise, with no magical winds to help you, back to square one, adrift on a hostile sea, with a crew you can no longer trust. The taste of new victory makes the defeat that much more bitter. He takes a huge oxhide bag and stuffs all the winds of the world into it, all the stormy, contrary, annoying winds that could possibly blow you off course. He cinches it shut with a silver cord and leaves only one wind free, the gentle west wind Zephyrus, which will blow you straight and true, directly back to Ithaca. You sail away from that cursed island, half your scouting party gone, the screams of Polyphemus echoing in your ears, carried by the very winds that now seem hostile, and gives you very clear instructions. "Odysseus, my man, whatever you do, do not open this bag. Guard it with your life." You thank him profusely, get back on your ship, and for 9 days and 9 nights, you, personally, man the rudder, never sleeping, keeping a hand on that precious bag. You are so close. You can see the shores of Ithaca on the horizon. You can see the smoke rising from the hearths of your own palace. You are literally within sight of home. Exhausted but triumphant, you finally drift off to sleep. You're adrift, emotionally and physically, when you find your next stop, the floating island of Aeolia. This place is different. It's a bronze-walled, polished rock paradise, home to Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. And yes, a mainstream mythological fact is that he was literally the guy Zeus put in charge of all the world's winds, like a divine meteorologist. Aeolus is a great host. He and his 12 children, 6 sons married to their 6 sisters, which is a bit. The gift is almost too good to be true. He hands you this magical bag of storms, and this is where it all goes wrong. The result is instantaneous and catastrophic. All the winds of the world roar out of the bag in a single, furious tempest. your ships are blown all the way back to Scylla. After being unceremoniously booted from Iollas's floating island, you and your crew are in a state of deep gloom. You row, not sail, for 6 days and nights, your arms burning, your hearts heavy with the knowledge that you were so close. The silence on the ships is a heavy blanket, punctuated only by the rhythmic splash of oars in the water. There's no wind to help you, and the trust between you and your men is shattered. On the 7th day, you spot land again. You drift into the harbor of Telepilas, the land of the Laestrygonians. It's a strange, cliff-lined harbor with a narrow entrance. All the other captains steer their ships inside, tying them up close together. But your gut, that same instinct that has saved you before, screams a warning. You moor your ship alone, just outside the mouth of the harbor, tied to a rock. It's a good thing you did. The Laestrygonians aren't just giants. They're cannibalistic giants. They swarm the cliffs and begin hurling massive boulders down at your fleet, smashing the ships to splinters. Then they wade into the water, spearing your men like fish and carrying them off to be eaten. It's a slaughter. From your safe vantage point, you can only watch in horror before cutting your mooring rope and screaming at your own crew to row for their lives. In a matter of minutes, your grand fleet of 12 ships is reduced to one. Just your ship. Everyone else is gone. The weight of that loss is crushing. You escape, shaken to your core, and eventually land on the island of Ia. This one feels different. It's quiet, wooded, and seems uninhabited. You spend 2 days just lying on the beach, too paralyzed by grief and exhaustion to move. Eventually, you force yourself up. You climb a hill and see smoke rising from a house deep in the woods. You know you have to investigate, but the thought of losing more men is unbearable. You divide your remaining crew into 2 groups. Your kinsman Eurylochus will lead one group to explore. You'll stay with the other half by the ship. Eurylochus and his men trek through the forest and find a palace in a clearing. The strange part: the grounds are prowled by lions and wolves, but they don't attack. They just fawn on the men like friendly dogs, wagging their tails. It's deeply unsettling. From inside the palace, they hear a woman's voice, singing beautifully as she works at a loom. It's Circe, the sorceress, a powerful goddess. All the men, charmed by her voice, call out and go in dull. Except the Circe welcomes them warmly, sits them down, and serves them a mixture of cheese, barley, honey, and wine. But she's laced it with a magical potion. Once they've drunk it, she taps each man with her wand, and they transform into pigs. They have the heads, bodies, and bristles of swine, but their minds are still human, trapped inside, squealing in their pens. Eurylochus, who watched from the trees, runs back to you in a panic, telling you the horrifying story. He begs you to take the ship and flee, but you can't. You won't abandon more of your men. You grab your sword and set off for the palace alone. On the way, a young man appears before you. It's the god Hermes. This is a well-known fact. Hermes intervenes to help you. He gives you a holy herb called moly to protect you from Circe's spells. The obscure tidbit is the description of the plant. It has a black root and a milk-white flower, and it's dangerous for mortals to pull from the ground. Scholars speculate this could refer to a real plant like the snowdrop, a known antidote to certain toxins. Hermes tells you exactly what to do. Drink her potion, and when she tries to use her wand, draw your sword and rush at her as if you're going to kill her. You do exactly as he says. Circe is stunned when her magic fails. She falls at your feet, recognizing you as the foretold Odysseus. You make her swear a sacred oath not to harm you, and then, your sword at her throat, you demand she free your men. She does, anointing them with another ointment, and they become men again, only now they're younger, taller, and more handsome than before. Not a bad spa treatment, considering. Scholars still argue whether Circe represents a primal fear of female power, or is a complex figure who tests, then aids, the hero. She proves to be the latter. She convinces you all to stay, and you do. For a whole year, feasting and healing, until your crew finally reminds you that you still have a home to get back to. You've spent a year on Ia, in a strange kind of domestic bliss with the sorceress Circe. It's been a necessary reprieve, a time to heal your battered spirit and body. Your men have recovered, feasting and relaxing, but the longing for home eventually They come to you one evening and say, "Boss, this has been great and all, but Penelope, Ithaca, remember, it's as terrifying as she described." You perform the ritual, precisely. As the blood pools in the trench, the spirits of the dead begin to rise like vapor from the earth, the souls of lost soldiers, of young brides, of old men. It's a horrifying and pathetic sight. The first spirit you recognize is one of your own crewmen. You didn't even know he was dead. It turns out he had gotten drunk the night before you left Circe's island, fallen asleep on the roof, and when he woke up he fell and broke his neck. A completely unheroic, almost comical death. He begs you to go back to IA and give him a proper burial, so his spirit can rest. You promise you will. The reality of your quest comes crashing back in. You try to embrace her, but your arms pass right through her ghostly form 3 times. The grief is overwhelming. Scholars still argue whether the psychological toll of this encounter learning of his mother's death from grief over his long absences, the true nadir of Odysseus's journey, the point of his deepest despair. Finally, the great prophet Tiresias appears. He drinks the blood and delivers his prophecy. He warns you that Poseidon is still furious and will make your journey difficult. He tells you that when you reach the island of Thrinacia, you must, under no circumstances, harm the sacred cattle of the sun god, Helios. If you and your men leave them alone, you might still make it home. If you harm them, he foresees the destruction of your ship and your entire crew. You alone will survive, and you will return home late, a broken man, on a foreign ship, to find your house full of arrogant suitors trying to marry your wife. It's a grim, detailed, and terrifying roadmap for the future. Your visit to the land of the dead is over, but the ghost of that prophecy will now follow you every step of the way. You go to Circe and tell her it's time for you to leave. She doesn't try to stop you. She knows this day was inevitable. But she tells you the journey ahead is far more perilous than anything you've faced so far. She says that before you can sail for Ithaca, you must take a different, more terrifying detour. You have to go to the land of the dead. You have to visit the house of Hades. The news hits you like a physical blow. You sit on the floor and weep. No mortal has ever intentionally sailed to the underworld and returned. You must sail to the edge of the world, to the land of the Cimmerians, a place shrouded in perpetual mist and darkness, where the sun never shines. They're at a specific spot where 2 rivers of Hades, the Phlegethon and the Charybdis meet. You are to pour libations into it, milk, honey, wine, and water. Then you must sacrifice a ram and a black awe, letting their blood drain into the pit. The dark blood will attract the spirits of the dead, who will swarm towards it, desperate for a taste. You must hold them at bay with your sword, allowing no one to drink until Tiresias has appeared and spoken to you. An obscure variant of this ritual suggests that the blood doesn't just attract spirits, but temporarily reanimates their consciousness, allowing for coherent conversation rather than just ghostly whispers. It's a suicide mission. Circe explains that you must find the spirit of Tiresias, the blind prophet of Thebes. He is the only one who can give you the map for the rest of your journey, the one person whose mind is still sharp, even in death. This is a mainstream fact of your quest. The Nicaea, or rite by which ghosts were called up and questioned, is a crucial turning point. It's your descent into darkness to find enlightenment. Circe gives you precise, chilling instructions. Following her directions, you and your men sail until you reach that bleak, sunless shore. Then you see a spirit that breaks your heart. Your own mother. You didn't know she had died. She had been alive when you left for Troy. You keep your promise. You sail back to IA, and the first thing you do is find Elpenora's body and give him the proper funeral rites he begged for. You build him a burial mound and plant his oar on top as a grave marker. It's a somber, necessary detour. Circe welcomes you back, and that night, while your crew sleeps, she lays out the next part of your deadly idea. She confirms what Tiresias told you and gives you a play-by-play of the horrors that await. First, you'll have to get past the sirens. Everyone knows the mainstream version of this story. The sirens are creatures whose enchanting song is so beautiful, so irresistible, that any sailor who hears it is compelled to steer his ship towards their island, where he will crash upon the rocks and die. Their island is literally littered with the bones of their victims. Circe gives you a clever workaround. She provides a large block of beat. You are to soften it and plug the ears of every man on your crew so they can hear a thing. But she knows you're Odysseus. She knows your insatiable curiosity. She tells you that, if you must hear the song, you can have your men tie you to the mast of the ship so tightly you can't move and give them strict orders not to untie you, no matter how much you beg or scream. As your ship approaches the island, you do exactly as she said. You plug your crew's ears and give the order to be bound. Soon, you hear it. The song is everything you could ever imagine. It's not just music. It's a promise. The sirens sing directly to you, calling you by name, praising your glory at Troy, offering you wisdom and knowledge of all things on earth. It's the ultimate custom playlist, tailored to your deepest desires and vanities. You are overcome with a desperate, maddening need to go to them. You strain against the ropes, your eyes bulging, screaming, and gesturing for your men to release you. But they, deaf to the song and following your orders, only bind you tighter before rowing past with all their might. An obscure tidbit about the sirens is that they were fated to die if a mortal ever heard their song and passed by unharmed. So, in a way, your survival was their death sentence. They were the original one-hit wonder, and the one hit was fatal. Just as the song fades, your men free you, and you all unplug your ears, sweating with relief. But there's no time to relax. You're immediately confronted with the next choice, the ultimate between a rock and a hard place. Ahead, the sea lane splits. On one side is Charybdis. 3 times a day, she swallows the entire sea in a monstrous, swirling vortex, and 3 times a day, she spits it back out. If your ship is caught, it will be obliterated. On the other side is a high cliff, and in a cave near the top lives Scylla, a creature of pure nightmare. She has 12 dangling feet and 6 impossibly long necks, each topped with a head full of 3 rows of razor-sharp teeth. Circe's advice was grim but clear. Sail closer to Scylla. It is better to lose 6 men than to lose your entire ship and crew to Charybdis. You don't tell your men about Scylla. You just order them to steer clear of the whirlpool. As they paddle frantically, their eyes fixed on the terrifying sight of Charybdis sucking down the ocean with a deafening roar, Scylla strikes. Her 6 heads dart down from the cliff face, faster than sight, and snatch 6 of your best men from the deck. You hear their screams, their cries of your name as they are lifted into the air, writhing like hooked fish, and then dragged into her cave to be eaten alive. It is, you will later say, the most pitiful thing you have ever seen. There was nothing you could do. Scholars still argue whether Scylla and Charybdis were mythological representations of real navigational hazards in the Strait of Messina, a channel known for its powerful whirlpools and treacherous rocks. For you, the experience is all too real, a brutal lesson in leadership. Sometimes, the only choice you have is which loss you are willing to accept. You've barely escaped the clutches of Scylla, the screams of your 6 devoured crewmen still ringing in your ears, a fresh trauma laid upon a mountain of old ones. Your heart is a stone in your chest. The next island you see is Thrinacia, the island of the sun. You remember the warnings, both from the ghost of Tiresias and from Scylla. It was a single, stark command. Do not touch the sacred cattle of Helios, the sun god. You try to convince your men to just sail past. Let's not even stop, you plead, your voice heavy with premonition. But your crew, led once again by the stubborn Eurylochus, they are exhausted, demoralized, and terrified. They refuse to spend another night on the open sea. They accuse you of being made of iron, of having no pity for their suffering. They want to land, just for one night, to cook a proper meal and sleep on solid ground. Reluctantly, you give in, but only after making them all swear a powerful, binding oath that they will not, under any circumstances, harm the sacred herds. They all agree, their hands on the hilt of their swords. You land on the island, and it's beautiful. The cattle and sheep of Helios are magnificent, fat, healthy, and lowing gently in the fields. The mainstream mythological fact is that these weren't just any livestock. They were immortal, divine beasts, cared for by the sun god's own daughters. Messing with them was like keying a god's car. At first, everything is fine. You have provision from Circe's island, so you eat and rest. But then a storm blows in, a furious, month-long gale that traps you on the island. For an entire month, the winds refuse to let you leave. Your food runs out. You and your men are reduced to catching what few fish and birds you can, but it's not enough. Starvation begins to set in. You can see the hunger gnawing at your crew, see the way their eyes keep drifting toward those plump forbidden cattle. You constantly remind them of their oath, trying to keep their discipline from cracking. One day, you go inland by yourself to pray to the gods for a way out. Exhausted and desperate, you fall asleep, and in that moment of your absence, Eurylochus makes his move. He gathers the starving crew and gives them a persuasive, terrible speech. Are we really going to die here of slow starvation? He asks. Any death is better than this. Let's sacrifice the best of the cattle to the gods. If they get mad, we'll promise to build a huge temple to Helios when we get back to Ithaca. And if he really wants to destroy us for it, well, I'd rather die in a single gulp at sea than waste away on this beach. His logic, twisted by hunger, convinces them. They round up the finest of Helios's cattle, perform a makeshift ritual, and begin to roast the meat. You wake up to the smell of cooking flesh and rush back to the beach, but it's too late. The crime has been committed. The gods immediately send terrifying omens. The flayed hides of the dead cattle begin to crawl on the ground. The meat on the spits begins to moo. It's a scene from a horror film. Despite these horrifying signs, your men, driven by starvation, feast for 6 days. On the 7th day, the storm finally breaks. The sea becomes calm, and you set sail, a sense of dread hanging over the ship. You haven't gone far when the sky darkens. A black cloud, sent by Zeus at Helios's angry request, appears overhead. A lightning bolt shatters the mast, which falls and kills the helmsman. Then another bolt strikes the ship itself, blowing it to pieces and throwing all your men into the sea. They are all killed, their bodies floating around you in the churning water. You alone survive, clinging to a piece of wreckage. You are swept back toward the terror of Charybdis, which you only survive by clinging to the branch of a fig tree overhanging the whirlpool until she spits your raft back up. For 9 days you drift, alone, clinging to the shattered timbers of your last ship. On the 10th day, you wash ashore on the island of Ogygia, the home of the nymph Calypso. You wash up on the shores of Ogygia, a lone survivor, a king with no subjects, a captain with no ship. The nymph Calypso finds you, and what follows is one of the strangest periods of your life. For 7 years, you are her prisoner, trapped in paradise. Her island is breathtakingly beautiful, a place of lush forests, sweet-smelling flowers, and crystal-clear springs. She offers you everything: divine food and drink, a soft bed, her own immortal love, and even immortality itself. But you are inconsolable. Every day, you sit on the beach, staring out at the empty sea, weeping for your wife and your home. You are a captive in a 5-star resort, and the loneliness is eating you alive. Finally, up on Mount Olympus, your divine patron, the goddess Athena, decides, enough. She makes an impassioned plea to her father, Zeus, reminding him of your piety and your suffering. This is a well-known fact of your story. Without Athena's constant lobbying on your behalf, you'd have been completely forgotten. Zeus agrees, it's time for you to go home. He sends Hermes, the messenger god, to deliver the news to Calypso. She is furious. She launches into a tirade about the double standards of the gods, how male gods are allowed to take mortal lovers whenever they please, but when a goddess does the same, it's a scandal. It's a surprisingly modern-sounding argument, but she knows she can't defy a direct order from Zeus. She finds you on the beach, tells you that you're free to go, and even helps you build a raft, providing you with tools, timber, and provisions for the journey. You're suspicious at first, thinking it's another trick, but her sorrow seems genuine. You finish your small but sturdy raft in 4 days and set sail, your heart finally daring to hope again. For 17 days, the journey is smooth, and then Poseidon, returning from a trip, spots you. The sight of you, so close to freedom, sends him into a rage. He summons a cataclysmic storm, the sea god's equivalent of flipping a table, and shatters your raft to pieces, leaving you clinging to a single plank in the raging waves. As you're about to drown, another deity intervenes. A sea nymph named Leucathea rescues from the waves. Here's a more obscure tidbit. Leucathea was once a mortal woman, Princess Ina, who was driven mad and threw herself into the sea with her son, only to be transformed into a minor goddess by the other gods out of pity. She tells you to abandon the wreckage and gives you her magical, immortal veil, telling you to tie it around your waist. It will keep you from drowning. You do as she says, and after 2 more days of being tossed by the waves, you finally wash ashore on the island of Scheria. You crawl into a thicket of olive trees, naked, exhausted, and covered in brine, and fall into a death-like sleep. You're awoken by the sound of girls laughing. You peer out and see a princess, Nausicaa, playing ball with her handmaidens by the river. Athena had engineered this meeting, appearing to Nausicaa in a dream, and inspiring her to go wash clothes by the shore. You're a terrifying sight, a battered, naked man emerging from the bush, but you use your famous silver tongue to win her sympathy. She gives you clothes, food, and directions to the palace of her father, King Alcyon. The Phaeacians are famous for their almost magical ships, which are driverless and can travel with the speed of thought. They welcome you with extraordinary hospitality. Scholars still argue whether the Phaeacians represent an idealized utopian society or a cautionary tale about the dangers of living in isolation, detached from the struggles of the mortal world. For you, they are simply saviors, After you tell them your entire, unbelievable story, they are moved to tears and promise you what you desire most: a fast, safe, magical passage home. The Phaeacian ship glides through the night, a silent, magical vessel, and delivers you to the shores of your own kingdom while you re-deep in an enchanted sleep. They lay you gently on the sand, surrounded by the treasure they've gifted you, and then depart. You wake up alone, confused. Your patron goddess, Athena, has shrouded the island in a thick mist to keep your arrival a secret, and for a moment, you don't even recognize your own home. You feel a pang of despair, thinking you've been abandoned on yet another strange island. But then Athena appears, scatters the mist, and together you plot the final, most dangerous phase of your quest: reclaiming your throne. You can't just walk into the palace. It's crawling with over 100 arrogant, entitled suitors who have overrun your home, are devouring your wealth, and are pressuring your wife, Penelope, to marry one of them. So, Athena disguises you, transforming you from a powerful king into a frail, stooped, old beggar. It's the ultimate undercover boss mission. Your first stop is the hut of your loyal swineherd Eumaeus, who welcomes you without recognizing you, offering you food and shelter out of pure goodness. There you are secretly reunited with your son Telemachus, who has just returned from his own journey seeking news of you. The reunion is tearful and brief. As you quickly lay out the plan for vengeance, you then make your way to your own palace, still in the guise of a beggar. The scene is infuriating. The suitors are feasting, drinking, and treating your home like their personal fraternity house. They mock you, abuse you, and one of them, the ringleader Antinous, even throws a stool at you. You take the abuse with a chilling patience, your mind a cold, calculating machine cataloging every insult for the reckoning to come. In one of the most heartbreaking moments of your journey, your old dog Argos recognizes you. He's ancient now, neglected and lying on a dung heap, but when he sees you, he thumps his tail and lifts his head, acknowledging his master one last time before he dies. It's a gut punch, a small moment of pure loyalty in a house full of betrayal. This is, of course, a famous part of your tale. A lesser-known detail is that your bow, the weapon of your revenge, was a treasured gift from a friend named Iphitus, and you never took it with you to Troy, because you considered it a sacred token of friendship, not an instrument of war. The irony is thick. Later, your old nurse recognizes you while washing your feet when she feels the distinctive scar on your leg from a boar hunt long ago. You silence her, your plan still needing secrecy. Penelope, ever clever, announces the final test for the suitors. She brings out your great bow and declares she will marry whichever man can string it and then shoot an arrow clean through the heads of 12 axes lined up in a row. One by one, the suitors try and fail. They can't even bend the bow enough to string it. They complain, they rub it with tallow, but it's no use. Then you, the humble beggar, ask for a turn. They laugh and mock you, but Telemachus insists. You take the bow, handle it with an easy familiarity, and string it effortlessly. It sings with a sound like a swallow's cry. You knock an arrow, draw it back, and send it flying perfectly through all 12 axe heads. The hall falls silent. Thunder cracks overhead, a sign from Zeus, and in that moment, you shed your beggar's rags, revealing the king beneath. The contest is over, you say, your voice like steel. Now for another target. You fire your next arrow straight through the throat of Antinous. Pandemonium erupts. The suitors scramble for weapons, but Telemachus has hidden them all. The doors are locked. There is no escape. What follows is not a battle, it's an execution. You, your son, and your 2 loyal servants slaughter every last one of them. Scholars still argue whether the very end of the epic, which details your peaceful reunion with your aging father and Athena's divine intervention to quell a civil war with the suitors, families, was a later addition by another poet. But for you, in this moment, soaked in the blood of your enemies, standing victorious in your own great hall, your quest is finally, truly over. Your long and arduous journey, a twisting odyssey through the wrath of gods and the horror of monsters, has at last come to its conclusion. The 10 years of war were followed by 10 years of wandering, a lifetime spent just trying to find your way back to the person and the place you called home. Now, the halls of your palace are quiet, cleansed of the treachery that infested them, and you stand not as a wanderer, but as a king. The final test, the secret of your unmovable bed built from a living olive tree, confirms your identity to your wary, hopeful wife, Penelope, and in her arms, you find the peace that the sea, the sorceresses, and the sirens could never take from you. Your story becomes a whisper, a legend, a testament to the enduring power of cunning, perseverance, and the unquenchable desire to return to where you belong.